Let's say hi. Hi. Come here. Ugh, stealing all the show. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to have a look through all of my Fairyloot books I own and find out how many of them I've actually read so far. I've always been obsessed with special edition books, but I think the real obsession came after I've gone through the waiting list of Fairyloot. I think it took me 10 months to get off of the waiting list for my first subscription, and a month later I got off another waiting list from Fairyloot, and then a month later another one. And since then I've gotten all 3 of their subscriptions. And since that point I think I also went on like a real hunt to find a lot of the older books from Fairyloot, and I got, I think, all of them off of Vinted, usually for a really good deal as well, because mostly these are just the books that people didn't find that interesting or have read already and don't want to keep them. And I've also bought a few of their books from their Fairy Trove. If you don't know what that is, they have gotten a website and they do like this whole subscription book thing in which you get a book every month. But they also make some different books which just go on their Fairy Trove and they go for a general sale. Though if you have a subscription with them, you get a day early access on all of the books that go on their Fairy Trove. And I got a few of these ones as well. But after a few months of me being on the subscription list, I've gotten at least over 20 of their special editions right now, I think. So I separated them in groups of 3 for this video. I'll go through all of the books I got from the subscription myself. I'll go through the books I bought off of their Fairy Trove, and I'll go through the books that I got out of Vinted secondhand. So I'm going to start with the books I bought off the Fairy Trove. The first one being The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. I have actually read this one and I love this. I rated it 4 stars. It's a paranormal young adult book about vampires. Though I do have to say, even though it's a young adult, especially in the beginning, it has some gory scenes. But I absolutely love this. It wasn't like that of a serious book. They made a lot of jokes and I loved that the characters were a bit like grungy, emo, alternative kids. And overall, I also just really love how the book looks. So, first book I have read. Next up is Owl Moving's Castle by Tiana Wayne Jones. Also a book I got off the Fairy Trove, and these are actually the only 2 books I have bought off of the Fairy Trove. I have bought 2 more, but they come in like in a few months, so they don't count for this video. But I've actually also read this one. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it, but it's mostly because I just really like Ghibli movies, and I've also seen the movie and I loved the movie. And I think the book was okay, but it's mainly just because I really like Owl's Moving Castle in itself, because this is a classic and I'm usually not really a fan of classics, sadly. I've read a few of them and they're not really my thing. So just the writing of this, I didn't really enjoy that much. But it was okay and I liked the characters, so it was a fun read. And I would recommend it if you'd like Ghibli movies. Next up are the books I got from my subscription itself. First up being Cruel is the Light by Sophie Clark. This is one of the most recent books that I got. It was the young adult, I believe, from January. And I haven't read this one yet, but I haven't gotten that much time to read it yet because I own this book for little less than a month. But I'm really interested in reading this one, and I know a lot of people have already read it and rated it really high, so I'm sure I'll enjoy this one. I also know Waterstones, I think, also did a special edition of this book, and I think the book has gotten a little bit more hype as well because there are more than just a Fairyloot special edition of this book going around right now. Next up is Immortal by Su Lin Tan. This was also a book from last January. I really love how this book looks, and especially under the dust jacket. It's really pretty, and I do really want to read this book soon, but I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. And I've also heard great things about this one. Then we've got The Starlight Heir by Amelie Howard. I also haven't read this one yet. This is also a book from January. And this was one of the, I think the first book that got me a little bit disappointed. I don't really like the cover itself, and the sprayed edges are okay, but overall I'm just not the biggest fan. I've also been thinking about selling this one, and I'll probably still will, but I might read it before I'm going to sell it. And also I don't have like a really high chance of selling it fast anyway, because I know, at least I think, there were more people disappointed in this one, because this is sold a lot on Vinted, and I know there are like maybe even more than 20 people that already have listed this one on Vinted that are available right now. So if I'm going to list it right now, I probably won't sell it anytime soon anyway. Then we're on to the books of last December. First one, The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. I think this is the adult book of December, and I'm really intrigued with this one as well, because I know it's about Fae. Honestly, I don't know any more about this book except that it's a fantasy book about Fae, but I usually really like these types of books, and I don't know, this one kind of gives me Emily Wilde vibes, and I really love that series, so I want to get into this book as well. But I know it's the beginning of a series, so I might wait a little bit longer before I read this one. Then we've got Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. I really love the edition, and especially the sprayed edges of this one. This was the young adult book of last December, and honestly the only thing I know about this book that is about dragons. But I love reading about dragons, so I really want to get to this book as well. And I think it's a standalone. I'm not 100% sure though. But I think the standalones also have a little bit more priority on my list, so I might get to this one sooner. Next up is The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. I think this one is really pretty as well, but I was a little bit hesitant on keeping this one. I was actually thinking on selling this one as well, because I don't know, I really love the special edition and I think it's really pretty, but I don't have a lot of pink other books, so I don't think it's really pretty in my bookshelf itself. And also I really love the cover of the normal edition of this book, so that's why I was kind of thinking on maybe selling this one and just getting the regular book. But I didn't, so I will probably keep this. I'm honestly not so sure what this book is about, but I have heard really great things about this, so I am eager to try this one out. Then we've got Sorcery and Small Magics by Mega Ducey. I'm probably not saying her name right, but this is one of the books I have actually read of my subscription. This was the first subscription book I got. This was the adult book, and I think I might have actually also read this one in the same month that I've actually gotten this one. I think I rated it 3.5 stars. I mostly really enjoyed this book because of like the D&D vibes that this book gave off, and I really enjoyed that. The only thing about this one is that I couldn't really stand the main character. I thought he was kind of insufferable, so that took away a lot of the fun for me. Overall, the story was cute and the main premise was really fun, but a lot of the things that happened I didn't really care that much about. The beginning was really fun, but towards the ending I didn't really care about it that much. And I know this is going to be a series, which I probably won't continue, but overall the book in itself, I did enjoy it. It's like a fantasy book with a little bit of romance between the two main male characters, which was really cute. But it was also a little bit hard to root for the romance if you don't really like one of the characters. So that was a little bit sad. And next up is For She Is Wrath by Emily Varga. I think this was the young adult book that I received. And I'm thinking on reading this one as well. I'm hoping soon, but I'm not sure yet. Only thing I know about this book, I think, is that the main female character is out for revenge because someone did her wrong. I'm not sure, to be honest. I think a lot of people like this book, but I don't know that much about it. And those are actually all of the books I got through my own subscription. And it kind of shows already that I only read one of the books I got through my subscription, while of the two books I've actually bought from the Fairy Trove itself, I do read actually. But let's get to the books I bought from Vinted secondhand. The first one being The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. It's this one. I used the reversible dust jacket because I think this one looks prettier as the other way around. Usually I don't really like when there are people displayed on the cover, but I don't know. I think this artwork is really pretty and I did like this one. And the back has a pretty sword on it. And the sprayed edges of this one are really pretty as well. I know this is a young adult book and I heard a lot of great things about this one as well. Though I don't really know that much about the story itself. I thought it was about maybe thieves or something, but I'm honestly not 100% sure. Let's see, it's about two enemy guilds, the Clothes and the Daggers, the Thieves and the Assassins. So I'm not going to read all of it because I like to go in mostly blind with a lot of the books, but I'm really excited to read this one as well. But I'm thinking this is also a beginning of a series, so I might hold on to it a little bit longer for maybe when the second book comes out as well. Then I also got the Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. This is one of my most recent purchases I got off of Vinted. I'm also using the inside of the reversible dust jacket because I thought she looks prettier than the other side around. I know this is like a series in which there are 2 books out right now, I think, or maybe even 3. And I know Fairyloot also did a special edition of the second book of the series, but it isn't available anymore on their website. And I saw only one seller who was selling their second book in the series, but they were charging a lot, so I didn't get it. So I might just get the normal hardback of the second book. And I'm really intrigued to see what this book is about, because I also don't really know that much about this one, though I know it's highly rated and it's a pretty popular book. Next up is The City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaefer. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this one right. I mainly bought this because I thought the spine would look pretty with my special edition of Onyx Storm. Wait, let me show you. Honestly, just because there was a dragon on the spine, I thought it was pretty cute. And about the book itself, I'm not sure what it's about, though I do have read a little bit about it and it sounds kind of freaky, so I was kind of interested to see what the book was about. Ever since her sister became a man-eating spider and slaughtered her way through town, 19-year-old Ness has been terrified. Terrified of some other nightmare murdering her and terrified of ending up like her sister. Because in Newham, the city that never sleeps, dreaming means waking up as your worst fear. Honestly, only that already intrigues me a lot, though I don't really know what the rest of the book is about and I can't really imagine what it's about except for that. But only those few sentences got me really intrigued. So then we've got The Bonesmith by Nikki Palpreto. I'm not the best in pronouncing names. This is actually one of the books I bought from Vinted that I did read. I mostly read this one because I know this is a series and the second book is already out. And Fairyloot has done a special edition on the second book as well. And it's currently available on the Fairy Trove. So I thought, let's read it, see if I like it. And if I do, I'm going to get the second book. I did decide on quitting the series and I didn't get the second book. I rated this book 3.5 stars and it wasn't that bad, but I wasn't really just that invested into the story. I think it gave a lot of Game of Thrones vibes, especially in the beginning, and I did really like it, and as well as the dark aspects that the book was about. But overall, the main character was alright, but she wasn't just that interesting to me. And I didn't really also like the romance in this as well. And the story overall, if I'm talking about the book, it sounds interesting, but while reading it, I really wasn't that interested. So it was okay, and the beginning was really fun, and the premise was cool, and the vibes were there. I just didn't love it. Then we've got the Seven Faceless Saints by M.K. Lobb. I honestly know next to nothing about this book, but I thought it was really cute because it's kind of small compared to the other Fairyloot books. And I thought the sprayed edges just looks really pretty. And I'm thinking this is like a more darker story just from the cover itself. And I usually tend to really like stories that are a bit darker. Let's see, someone's quoting a dark and delicious murder mystery. Well, I usually do like those types of books, so I'll probably get around to reading it, and I just love how it looks in my bookshelf as well, so I might get to this year still. Then we've got Lore of the Wilds by Annalise Brana. I haven't read this one yet. I know this is one of their romantasy books, and I think romantasy probably is my favorite genre, so I'll get to this eventually. I don't really know what the book itself is about, though I do know there are fae in this one, so that got me intrigued. Then we've got The Coven by Harper L. Woods. I think this was their adult book for October. It's about vampires, and that's like the only thing I know about this one, but I do love me a good book about vampires, so I'll probably get around to reading this one, but I think this is also part of a series that isn't completed yet, so I'm not sure when I'll get to it. Next up is Evocation by S.T. Gibson. This is the same writer as A Dowry of Blood, I believe. Yeah, A Dowry of Blood. When I bought this edition, I actually thought this was going to be about vampires, but I think it's about the occult. Usually these types of topics interest me quite a bit, so I'll get to this one eventually as well, but I haven't read it yet. Then I got Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I haven't read this one yet. It was on my TBR for this month, but I actually started the Throne of Glass series, and I'm thinking on continuing that one first, and I might read this one after. I honestly don't know that much about this book, but I know Cassandra Clare is quite a known author, especially for her other series, and I actually haven't read any of these ones yet, so I'm going to start probably with reading this series first, and I'm quite interested, and I'm sure I'll get to it this year. I know the next book in this series also is coming out in about a month, so I actually want to read this before that one comes out so I can join the hype still. Then I got The Temptation of Magic by Megan Scott. I know next to nothing about this book, but I thought the sprayed edges looked really pretty. But the thing that got me to buy this book were the end papers. I thought the art on the end papers were so beautiful. I'm honestly not sure if this is a series or a standalone, and I do want to read it eventually, but I haven't gotten any plans for it yet. But I mean, the artwork in this book is just gorgeous. Then I got The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. I honestly only got this book because it reminded me of the novella of Ekatar, A Court of Frost and Starlight, and just these vibes. I just wanted to get the book mainly because of it. I honestly also really don't know what this book is about. I think this was the January book of last year. I'm not sure though. The book only adult book of January, yeah. I know nothing about this, but just the vibes made me buy it, I guess. Then I've got Year of the Reaper by Makia Lucier. I honestly don't know that much about this book, though I know it's like an epic fantasy, but I mainly got this one because I could get it for really, really cheap. And this is also one of the smaller Fairyloot books, which I think is really cute, but I haven't read this one as well. So those are all of the Fairyloot books I own right now. It's 22 in total, and I've read 4 of them, which I know doesn't sound great. I've read 2 of the books I bought myself from the Fairy Trove, and those are actually also the only 2 books I got from that. So I think it also shows that the books that I actually buy myself, which I really choose to buy from their website, I do read. I only read one of the books of the subscription, and I've only read one of the books I bought of a Vinted. I don't know, I just love the look of special edition books, but I do tend to read like series when they are completed, and most of these books are incomplete series, so I think that's also kind of the reason which is stopping me from reading them as well, that I display them all in my bookshelf, but I read most of my books from my TBR card, and these ones aren't in my TBR card, so that's also mainly I think the reason why I don't pick them up. But I'm going to try to read maybe at least half of them this year. My goal for this year for reading overall is also to get rid of most of my TBRs, so I'll get to most of these ones eventually. But that concludes my video so far for all of my Fairyloot special editions. If you liked the video, don't forget to give a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of me, don't forget to subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Bye!